Welcome to another SuperCoach Hub NBL podcast. I'll be your host today, Verns, and joined with me is last year's winner, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Really good. Really good. In the midst of one of the craziest storms to hit Brisbane right now. I tell you, it was a pretty hairy drive into work to record, and you see behind me, we've just lost all the signal, and been some absolutely intense thunder and lightning. But we're here, and we're ready to talk about what happened in another crazy round of NBL Supercoach.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad the internet's still working. I'm glad you are here with all of that. We appreciate you taking the dangerous drive to be here. But no, it's been a hectic round. Look, I know that we don't really have our results of how we've gone for the round overall, but how did your round go? I do personally know, but tell the viewers.
I have finished on 399 for the week. Look to be honest, I'm overall really happy with that score. I'm probably happy with that score because I've had a pretty rough year this year so far. But look, a lot of the things I kind of wanted to happen happened. I captained Doolittle for the week, which turned out okay. I think he must have been the fourth or fifth highest scoring player for the week. He was the fifth highest scoring player for the week. So that wasn't too bad an outcome. Look, I had Jack White like a lot of other people had. Okeano Pinder, Milton Doyle. Like they were all good. Look, some of the frustrating things that happened to me, I've held Space Cam since the start of the year, has been a really painful roller coaster. Obviously, last round was an incredible roller coaster. I thought to myself, right, you've got a BE of 7. How good's this? BE of 7, going to hold you through. You've got DPP. Comes out and him and Gorge clearly have an argument, and he plays 10 minutes and scores 3 super coach points. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I had a choice between keeping him or Glover. That was good. It was good that Glover scored 59. It was great. Frustrating. But so my score could have been a bit better. But look, all in all, I am also a person that owns Rob Lowe, and lo and behold, Rob Lowe scored the third highest super Supercoach score for the week. Didn't think we'd be saying that. But, yeah. So how did you go, Vance?
Yeah, well, look, I actually played you in our Supercoach Hub head-to-head league, so you did me dirty by 11 points. I got 388, very similar to you. Mixed emotions with Cam Oliver. Last week, I traded him out for Keanu Pinder, and I was just so mad. Pinder got outscored by 36 or so points, and very frustrated at that. And then this week happens. You know what? I'm feeling pretty good about it actually. It's all right because there's no world where if you held him last week that I would have traded him this week. Like there's no world I would have done
Yeah.
that. So
No.
yeah,
No.
it's just one of those things where I mean it's funny in that sense. I was so angry at him last week, but this week I feel a lot better about it. I did copy you with Glover though, unfortunately. I personally, for my trades, I didn't want to move Glover. I really didn't want to move Glover. But I had the choice of basically if I moved Robertson, I was 3K short of getting Doolittle.
Oh.
So I had to move Glover, who was 5K more expensive than Robertson, so that I could get Doolittle.
Right.
And Robertson gets a -1 and Glover gets 59, 60 points difference, which is what what Doolittle scored. So
Yeah.
it's a bit frustrating in that aspect. I think it was still the correct play because it means I have a better field for next week.
Yep.
Means I've got Doolittle for next week. I did captain him as well. If I didn't captain him, I probably would have captained Hurt if I didn't bring him in.
Yep.
So in reality, it was still the correct play. It just sucks that it feels like every time I trade someone out, they just go bananas.
Yeah. I know it is. It's just I've felt the same way this year. But yeah. Look, I was really conscious that when Oliver performed well last week, I thought to myself, okay, the minutes are going to change here, and he obviously played so much better. They're gonna keep him. And then I noticed that Sydney obviously had another double game week in round 10, and I'm like, okay, that's before SEM does. That's before, so I was like, right, I'm gonna keep him, and it's gonna work out fine. And now it's just like I kind of took to socials on X and spat my frustration out, saying I'm done with the roller coaster. But who knows? We've got to wait and see what comes down the wash. Obviously, Jack White picked up an injury this week, which was it's going to be pretty significant. Obviously, a lot of people were probably going to be looking at moving him on, maybe with the type of doubles that are upcoming this week and to free up some cash. But some people were maybe potentially thinking about keeping him for the round 11 and round 12 doubles. So a few things to weigh up. I guess a lot of people have got a few things to weigh up now with the Jack White injury.
Yeah, look, it definitely sucks for those that hold, but you still got you did pretty well for the time you had him. I know me personally, 3 weeks ago when Melbourne and Sem started their run, it's a question between Hurt and White. And I made the decision to go Hurt, and White's clearly been better over this time. He's made more money, made more points. Sucks. But for anyone that did have him, he did his job. He's made a ton of money from his starting price. He scored really good points. Even in this week where he got injured, it sucks that he couldn't go to like 80 plus because of that injury. Personally for me, I was very glad as a non-owner. But 62, fourth highest score of the round. You can't be disappointed.
No, not at all. So, mate, look, obviously we're just thinking about having a look at some of the games this week. First game of the week was the Brisbane Bullets and the Melbourne United game. On the Thursday night. Pretty high scoring game, 120 to 103. It was quite incredible. And I guess the reason why it was so high scoring for Melbourne United is that Rob Lowe decided that he wanted to be the next Steph Curry and shoot 6 3-pointers or something for the big man. I couldn't believe it. It was quite insane watching that game and seeing him just not miss from out long. Did you manage to catch any of those replays or any of that game?
Yeah, no, I actually watched like every game bar the very last one because honestly it was pretty irrelevant. The SuperCoach, Adelaide and Illawarra. But definitely saw this game. And look, it wasn't just the shooting that was obviously really good, but Vickerman wanted, I'm pretty sure that's the name of Melbourne coach, Vickerman. He wanted to push the pace. He kept yelling when they would get a rebound, push, push, push. And like Jack White was just running full court, coast to coast, constantly. They just wanted to play fast pace. They didn't want to slow down, which I think was pretty good in the Brisbane. I mean, they have Zakowski and Harrison, who, they're very tall, but they're not the quickest and not the most lateral guys. So if you're running coast to coast as White, these guys can't pick you up. And they played a lot of small ball too at times. They really wanted to push the pace. Brisbane kind of wanted to match it. And a pretty important game for the week because we know Brisbane's coming into this massive run. Obviously, a team on the double this week, the only team with Perth. So a lot of people are probably sitting there watching this team very carefully. Anyone else stand out to you here?
Yeah, look, I think obviously with the Brisbane run that's coming, I think the majority of people who are playing SuperCoach Fitting will probably have Harrison come in as one of their picks. Look, I understand that he only scored 18 SuperCoach points in this game, but he's been incredibly consistent. Just going through SuperCoach scores since the start. They had that very bad game at the start of the year where he scored 13, but since then he's gone 42, 29, 43, 28, 30, and 37. By scoring 18, he's probably helped all of us non-owners a little bit. I think his break-even was somewhere like 30. His break-even was 27, so he's going to be just a little bit cheaper for us to bring in. I think that he was definitely one I was looking at. Outside of that, Brisbane are a team that frustrate the living hell out of me because obviously I live in Brisbane. I don't really have a team I support in the league, but I desperately want to support the Bullets, but I just can't. They drove me nuts last year, and I tell you, after going to that Sydney Kings game and the Kings being up by like 38 at one point, I just they just do so many things frustratingly. I'm not 100% sure where to go from there. Like Josh Bannon was one of my favorite players in the league last year, even though he played for them. Probably hasn't hit those heights of last year as of yet. But at least some of these pieces for the Bullets that we're talking about bringing in for obviously this double game week, but we have to remember that from round 11, they have a stretch of like 8 double game weeks in a row. at least a lot of them are fairly cheap for us to bring in. If we're looking at some of the top scorers from this week, Keandre Cook, he's 258,000. He scored 41, so he'll go up a bit. Casey Prather 215. Bannon himself 281. So it's not like some of these pieces that we're looking at are going to break the bank. Like, for instance, those of us who sold PJC have to try and get PJC back, and he's still going to be well over that 400,000 mark in a couple of weeks' time. So that's the thing I'm probably looking forward to the most, is trying to figure out which Brisbane piece I'm going to bring in, but know that I will actually be able to get a bit of money from, say downgrading Jack White to someone like that. So what about you? What pieces have you got your eye on from the Brisbane Bullets?
Yeah. I've actually was eyeing off Bannon and either Cook or Bateman. It really came down to how the break-even game sort of plays itself out. I do agree with you. It was something I highlighted in my most recent YouTube video, that they're very cheap. So we can get 5 of these guys and still probably have enough money to be able to get these PJCs. I'm someone who's running Zukowski, so he's very cheap as well. So that leaves a lot of money for 3 other guys, probably 300K for like 3 other guys. And you can have quite a stacked lineup while holding these Brisbane players, in my opinion. Bannon was the main guy that stood out for me, just in the sense that I kind of need to ignore Harrison, just because I do have Zukowski. If I bring in Harrison, that means next week I'll have Harrison, Zukowski, and I have to field them on a single, which obviously isn't ideal. So I'm looking preferably at Bannon. That means I can flex him to the bench instead, sort of thing, for next week. As I said, a Cook or a Bateman. It's going to be Cook after this performance. He's going to have a great break even. And, in 2 weeks' time, when they start the 7 in a row runs, Cook will be 30K more expensive. Bateman might be around about the same price. So might as well get the guy that's going to increase in value. So they're the 2 guys I was looking at.
I just wanted to look, someone that was talked about so much at the start of the year was Rocco Zukowski. You've obviously already got him in your team, which is going to really help you for this run. I noticed he scored 16 SuperCoach points this particular game. I'm just having a look at his minutes that he's played so far in these games. He's had 16, 12, 11, 7, 5, and 12 minutes in the games. I think one of my frustrations with the Bullets is that you've got a kid that I actually think has got a lot to offer. We've seen glimpses of what Rocco is really capable of, and I don't know. I don't think they play him enough minutes, and B, they don't seem to know how to utilize him and to get the best out of him. And it's so frustrating. Like, I don't even follow the game of basketball the way that some of you guys in the NBL Supercoach community does, but even I know I've sort of learned enough about the game that when I was watching some of these games, I'm like, what are they doing with him? Like, why are they not moving to his strengths? Why are they not doing something to make him have an impact? And clearly, I think that he can have an impact. They haven't labelled him an X star for no reason. Like, I think he's got all the potential in the world. Do you think as the season goes on and as we're going into this longer stretch that we might see Zukowski A, play some more minutes, and B, play like the coaching staff figure out how to utilize him better?
Oh, I wish. I really wish. 3 things we've seen out of Brisbane. We always thought at the start of the year, Harrison would come in, play 25 minutes, and Zukowski would play the minutes he doesn't play. But that's not been the case. Harrison comes in and plays his minutes, and then they go small ball for like a good 5 to 10 minutes, and then Zukowski gets the leftover minutes. And that's sort of been a real problem this season. I do agree that they just don't use him correctly. I feel like in preseason, they were throwing him lobs. He was getting dunks. They were also feeding him the ball around that free throw line. He was doing these little floater things in the preseason and nailing those as well. And all those things we saw in the preseason, they're just gone. I feel like the team's playing either a little bit too much selfish ball where they're not looking for him. But I don't know if that's affected his confidence. But yeah, all of a sudden he's looking a lot more lost on the court. I think, as you said, they don't know how to use him, which has then forced him into a position where he doesn't know where to be. And now he just looks lost. And he got 16 points this week. I got to be honest, as a viewer, I don't know where they came from because I tuned out of the last 5 minutes of this game. And when he came on the court, I swear he maybe got 2 rebounds in that entire game. And when I turned it off for the last 5 minutes, clearly they've put both bench sides on, and he's somehow gone out and got 14 more Supercoach points against Melbourne's bench side. That's the
Yep.
only thing I can think of, because for the other 90% of the game, he hadn't done anything. So,
No.
and that's once again, it's not on him. He's very skinny. He's going to get physically outbodied by these veteran players,
Yep.
lowly. It's going to be very hard. Even White's going to be too strong for him. But it's not about, him always getting in for that. It's about when they drive, being able to find him under that basket sort of thing.
Absolutely.
We saw, as I said, preseason, the amount of times you just put the ball near the ring, this kid is going to slam it down.
Because he's that tall.
Exactly, but it hasn't happened. I don't remember the last time I saw him get an alley-oop dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Incredible.
frustrating. But I think we can probably tick off Brisbane as this week everyone's looking at Harrison, Bannon, and then probably a Cook. I reckon they're probably the 3 people who are on, maybe a Prather as well, actually. But as a Zakowski owner, it hasn't been enjoyable so far. And he's someone I almost wish I could have traded, but I'm not going to trade him at this point of the season, unfortunately. And positively, he scored 16 this week, much better than his 2 last week.
That's right. Yeah, look, I think that anyone up there, I think Casey Prather is interesting because he's obviously got that dual forward guard, which I think will be fairly valuable. Maybe it's not someone that you do this week because obviously, we just talk like he just missed his break even. So he's not like he's going to go hugely up in cash. But I think having someone that's going to play that stretch of games, that stretch of double game weeks, and have that dual, that dual status, I think it's probably pretty invaluable. Outside of that, Mitch Norton had a break even of -2 going into this week, and he has scored himself 22. I think the hard thing with Mitch Norton himself is just that consistency. Like, he's obviously Supercoach scores this year have been 10, 15, 9, 12, 8, 38, 18, and then 22. So has only really hit that over that ceiling mark, over 30 once. You're not paying top dollar for him, so that's okay. But he is now a bit more expensive than he was because of that negative break even. So it's probably someone I'm going to pass up on. But yeah, I think everyone's in the same boat, that they realise that this upcoming round 9, is the time to start getting a few of those Brisbane Bullets pieces in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the last few weeks have already probably prepped most of the Perth players on their doubles. So, yeah, it's a good week to get on the Brisbane guys. Norton, unfortunately, if he's 50K cheaper, he becomes a bit more of a talking point. But then again, he's obviously performing to that level. So, yeah, I like the other thing with the Brisbane players is, since they are so cheap, if we're bringing them in over this stretch, they don't always have to be on field. You just flex them to the bench through this.
Yep.
You put PJC on field. Maybe you get a Davis later. Something like that. Like, these guys will be good scorers. They'll be good enough on field, but they'll also do their job on the bench. So,
yep.
Yeah, it's actually a very nice price point for all of them.
So we move on now to, I guess, the other relevant team at the moment, which is the Perth Wildcats. You've mentioned that quite a number of people would have already started the transition to bringing them in. The Wildcats have got 3 more double game weeks left in this stretch. So rounds 9, 10, 11. They're one of only 2 teams that are on the double in round 9. Look, you can see based on ownership that people have started transitioning to that. For people so you've got your Doolittles, Pinder, Henschel, and Pepper. Are they probably, ownership wise, they probably the highest?
I reckon
Highest owned
Almanza
Perth
will
pieces?
definitely be up there. Let me
Oh,
have a cheeky look at that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump the top 10% ownership. Henschel, Doolittle, Pepper, Pinder, Almanza. They're the big ones from Perth.
So yeah, Henschel in the top 10%. It's 92% owned. Doolittle's almost 70%. Elijah Pepper 53, Pinder 52, Almanza 43, and then it's a fairly significant drop back there to to
Winlaw
Windler
at 6.6.
and Webster and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I think those players in the top five really are probably the only ones that people probably need to have their eye on. I think the thing that people need to keep an eye on is the Bryce Cotton news as to when Bryce Cotton is due back. Now, I heard at the start of the Perth Tassie game that they were saying that Bryce Cotton would be expected back in 2 weeks' time. So the good news is that we should get the round 9 double and the round 10 double out of these Perth pieces like your Pepper, purely from a minutes perspective, because you think that once Bryce Cotton comes back into the fold, that players like Pepper and Henschel probably feel a bit of pain minutes wise. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I do have an interesting question for you here. Let's say, hypothetically, he comes back in 2 weeks' time, so he'll be back for round 5. I'm personally not going to bring him in round 5 because he's going to have that insane break even because he got that 0, unfortunately. But then there's a good chance he could end up like 300K. I think he's 330K now. Probably got an insane break even. He'll probably lose a lot of money. And look, unfortunately, they lose a lot of their doubles after that, so their schedule for the back half of the year isn't great. But if Bryce Cotton was less than 300K, would you bring him in just to ride the bench personally and probably make money over that time? Is that something you'd consider?
Uh, Look, I think the hard thing with that is that by that stage, there's so many teams that are on doubles every week after that. Like there really is. Like their last double finishes at round 11. So from round 12 onwards, you've got what? On round 12, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams on the double. Round 13, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the double. Round 14, you've got 4 on the double. Round 15, you've got 1, 2, 3, you got 6. Round 16 and 17, everyone's on doubles. So I just think that with all those doubles, there's probably going to be other options there. Not to mention the fact that Bryce has missed now, like he's going to have missed a lot of basketball. And there's no saying that, he's going to come back in and be all that he can be like when he hasn't played for a good chunk of the year either. So I guess it depends how cheap. Like if he goes really bad those first couple of games, it gets down to 250. Maybe you're bringing him in preparation for the round 16 and 17 doubles. But yeah, I think there's going to be too many other pieces on double game weeks for me to justify that during that period.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you there. Look, it's something that I'm definitely eyeing off. It's you need to be conscious of it. I think that's the biggest thing. You need to be conscious of it. You need to know that it potentially is there because if this man does come back and he, as you said, he's 250K, ends up with a low break even, there's a good chance he can make you that 100K at that point of the season. Doesn't matter all that much. But if I could bring Bryce Cotton in for 250K, or I mean, who's at 250K right now? Like a Bateman who will have the doubles over that time.
Yeah.
You gotta really toss that up. I mean, he got 18 this week, Bateman. Do you really think he's going to get towards the 40 a game? Could Bryce get close enough to that while making money? And he will still have some doubles, not many, but he still does have them. But yeah, just something to be conscious of for people. But yeah, this game was also a surprisingly good game. Doyle showed up and actually made it a ball game. Like, whew, when that man's stroking it, he is entertaining to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easily his best game of the year, not just from a SuperCoach perspective, just from playing NBL. It was really good. Him showing everyone exactly what he's capable of. The turnover numbers were down. He just was shooting lights out the whole game. Really, really enjoyable. I was so disappointed for them that they lost that game. I thought that with Doyle playing the way he did, I really, really thought that, he had a shot to really ride it home. I just think that Perth probably just had too many answers for them, in the front court of that. But no, I actually got to watch the majority of that game. And very entertaining game. Really enjoyed it. It was a bit lower scoring, but I really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, for us, this was a good game for Doolittle. I think we were very happy with this. I'm actually a Webster owner myself, and I played him on field, so I was pretty happy with
Wow.
this game as well. I think was it this game that Withers had a good game as well? I feel like Withers showed up for a bit as
Yeah,
well and was pretty
yeah.
good.
No, he did. It was
That
this
man's
game.
actually so good from three. I feel like whenever I see him shooting a three ball, it's going in. Like I don't know what the actual percentage is on it, but I'm always watching Ty Webster like a hawk, and whenever he's passing the Withers shooting, I'm just like, oh, assist, baby, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. No, he brings a really good energy when he's played. Obviously he's being the Bryce Cotton replacement, and he brings incredible energy to the court. I actually think that they, in some of those games, they really needed to be playing him more minutes.
Yeah.
But I guess he is, when Bryce is there, he's not even in the team. So I guess there's only going to be so many minutes that they're going to give him in that sort of situation. All right, so that's that game. On to Sydney
Sydney
Kings and
Sam.
Phoenix.
Dude, this was
Far
as
out.
a Sem, like I'm as you sort of said before, I'm not really an NBL supporter like team wise. I never had one before last season, but I guess you support the local team, and because I'm from Southeast Melbourne, going to support the local team, and this was a little disappointing to watch them win. Like, sorry, watch them lose. They were dominating this game. They were so far ahead, and they just did nothing in the fourth quarter, and Sydney ran over them, and it really did feel like Sydney were coming. Like they had momentum, they were hitting shots. It felt like there was so much pressure on Sam, and they could not make a bucket. I think the biggest thing Supercoach wise here is first of all, Hurt's shots were not dropping. I think he
Yep.
got 3 or so blocks in this game, at least 3 I remember. And that would have single-handedly elevated his score quite heavily. But he also like rolled an ankle at some point, and I thought he was going to go off, and he ended up playing through it, but just didn't look like he had the energy he did earlier when he got like 3 blocks in probably like the first half. But yeah, when his shooting's off, it's a real worry for Sam because he's
Yeah.
definitely an offensive powerhouse for them.
Look, I think that was the story of Hertz round. He didn't shoot very well in. I don't think he shot very well in the second game
No.
this week either, but other people in the team did, which helped them by. Matt Hurt, everyone knows he's had an incredible start to the year, super coach wise. His scores have just been amazing. He's been shooting lights out, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, I wish I had have owned him for all those scores, but I mean, part of the reason that I I didn't bring him in is because I do think that he relies on a lot of pure point scoring to
Yeah.
get him his high super coach scores. And when all of a sudden that scoring stops, his scoring does stop. So we looked at not games from this week, but one of the games from last week where he went absolutely bonkers in the first quarter. I think he was on he was on like 22 super coach points after the first quarter. And I'm like, as a non-owner, I'm like, oh, what am I watching? Like this. Then he just forgot how to shoot the rest of the game, had turnovers, or sort of think he only scored like 5 or 6 super coach points from there on. So that was something that was always on my mind with him, that he wasn't really collating a lot of the other super coach points in other ways. So anyway, look, we talk about what Jack White did for owners. Matt Hurt has been incredible for owners. Every time I've seen anyone have him in the team, I've been very jealous. Through the start of the years, obviously helped people being DPP status, so he's been able to move things here and there. But he, as you said, this round, basically none of his shots have stuck, and that's reflected in his super coach scores.
Yeah. And look, Sobe also won in this game that frustrated me like crazy. Someone I once again, my my front court, sorry, back court. I sometimes forget which one's which. But I had Sobe and Webster on my field, which was pretty good actually. Sobe ended up what, third highest scorer for the round, so he did quite nicely. But this game was super frustrating because he was probably more super coach points before the fourth quarter started. I didn't personally look at the live scores as to what they were, but like I'm mentally tracking them as I go. And I feel like he was already at like 30 super coach points. That fourth quarter started. He didn't hit a single shot that I can remember. He just turned the ball over multiple times. I mean, this is obviously when Sam Watt scored 5 points like that final quarter,
Yeah.
and Sydney just ran over them. And a lot of that came from turnovers, and a lot of them were Sobe turnovers, unfortunately. And just very, very frustrating to watch somebody go backwards in super coach points in the final term. So,
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. It's like what It's like what Doolittle had 5 turnovers in the game that we're going to talk about soon. 5 turnovers. He did it last week as well. So as captain, it's -10. When you
Yeah.
think sorry, minus
Minus
20,
20.
minus
Yeah.
20. So like in the last 2 weeks, as Doolittle as my captain, because I captained him last week as well. He had 5 turnovers in one of the games, and then 5 turnovers again. It's brutal, so brutal. The turnovers are yeah, it's just so painful, aren't they? When as soon as you see it, I just go, oh, I'll get a supercoach headache.
Yeah. I think the annoying thing with Sylvie too is it's like he's not. Some of the times it's not the wrong play he's making with his passes. I know, look, we'll talk about the other game later. I won't say it there, but this one, I think this is where not having Derek Walton Jr. really became noticeable when like Sydney stepped up their pressure. They really hassled the ball handlers and they had to rely on like Sobey carrying the ball up and that just equaled turnovers. I mean, the other guy in this game though that is very highly owned that we no longer own, Glover, did come out against his old side and was popping off pretty hard though.
Yeah,
He was hitting some pretty ridiculous shots. Very entertaining to watch him when he's on.
yeah. No, look, I like Glover. I really do. I be very entertaining to watch, and when he does get going, he it's quite a sight to see him nail him. So just on the other side of the ball there, Sydney Kings obviously they don't have a double now till round 10, and it's just a single double. But some of their stars sort of came back again today. Jalen Adams comes out and hits a 40. I'd like to thank Adams for doing that after I captained him for whatever his score was in round 2 when he got injured. Thanks very much,
13.
Adams.
I
Appreciate
was
it.
there for that.
But look, for Sydney, for Sydney Kings as a franchise for their fans, obviously, Jalen Adams healthy, doing stuff on court makes all the difference for them. He definitely can make things happen in that team, and that was reflected again. In his SuperCoach score of 40 this week. Cooks has just went on doing what Cooks does. I guess the biggest talking point for people like me, Cam Oliver. Thanks very much. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Gorge. Thanks,
Yeah.
Gorge.
He would definitely have to be the number one guy because most people would have traded Cooks in reality. And yeah, the only people that were holding any Sydney players were honestly Oliver for that break even. As I said, I unfortunately held Robertson, didn't want to, but had to. I think the crazy thing from what we've seen from Sydney is actually how good Noy's been. Noy was really good in their game
Yeah.
last week. He was really good in their game again this week. He's actually dropped to about 150K. But I just have no faith in the Sydney rotation anymore. You could bring
No.
someone in and be like, yeah, look, he's got a low break even. This is it. And then they get no court time next week
Yeah.
and they get a 4 and who cares about a break even at that point? It just gets ruined.
Yep.
So I've got no faith in these guys outside of like Adams and Cooks, probably.
That the rotation there is I'm almost got less trust in Gorge than what I do in Adam Ford. Like I had to start have no trust in Adam Ford after some of the things that happened last year, and he's already done it this year. But I can't trust Gorge. Like even the minutes sometimes he's given Cooks has been insane. But the minutes where he'd have Pepe starting and all that sort of stuff, and all of a sudden Pepe doesn't take the court, then you've got Oliver who apparently like we're talking Cam Oliver who's NBL superstar is like only playing 10 minutes in games. It's incredible. It's it makes it really hard to sort of sit there and plan what you're going to do because you need to know that these players are going to be playing some minutes, and I don't think outside of those two big guys, I don't know if I can trust who's going to be playing minutes in that rotation. So
Yeah, 100% agree. And honestly, with Adams' backs, we know from most sports that if you have a back problem, it can just flare up any time.
yep,
And that can always be dangerous getting back on them. And holding him, even after he's 13, definitely hurt me for many weeks because he just never really go back to the heights that we saw this week. So yeah, I think Sydney, you almost just ignore for the rest of the season outside of Cooks. They don't have too many doubles because they've gotten a lot of them out of the way now. And most of those doubles they have, other teams will have doubles and have better fixtures. So you can probably just ignore these guys for almost the rest of the season at this point.
Yep. All right, so on to the second Tassie Jack Jumpers game of the week against the Breakers.
Yeah, big upset here. 10th versus first, and 10th absolutely decimate them.
But they were, the weirdest thing was I actually missed this game, but New Zealand were up comfortably early in the game. I think that they were actually well and truly like ahead, and then things just they just all went to sleep. It just
Yes.
it was just really weird. I was just sitting there going, "Oh God, the Breakers are really, they're like on the way. Like they've belted a couple teams last week. Now they're belting Tassie, and then they just went to sleep."
Yeah. No, I did watch this game, and honestly, I don't know what happened at halftime, but I think obviously the floor support came out and they put the libs on that ring, and nobody could hit a shot for the rest of the game. It was generally surprising at how I forgot. Was this a game that was like 30 a piece at like halftime almost? I remember one of the games being, it might be this game where it's like super low scoring and it was just like unbelievable. But yeah, it just neither team could shoot early on. As you mentioned, Breakers hit a few shots, looked like they were in their straps, and you're just sitting there going, damn, they're unstoppable. Like they're feeding the ball to Menenga inside. He's going out hitting threes. PJC is doing his thing. Lopez is doing their thing. But yeah, then the ball just stopped dropping. And it's as simple as that. The second the ball stops going in the hole, like you got to back it up with some sort of defense. But Craig Sword actually had a massive game in this one. Just random side note here, he was really good.
Yeah, no, he did. He did. Like I watched some of the replay. I didn't see the game, but I watched the replays of this one, and he looked great. The other thing about this game, while Doyle had an absolute stinker again, thanks Doyle, Crawford probably had his best game of the year. Like he finally started. It's been well documented that his shooting percentage has been like almost career low this year to start the games. Crawford just incredible this game. Like anything he was doing was dropping. His energy is a really big thing. Like he's almost like a Sonic the Hedgehog, just popping up everywhere on the court. And where Tassie are at their best when Crawford, is playing that sort of basketball. So yeah, I'm glad Tassie's obviously had a really rough year. Jack McVeigh's been well documented that he's gone overseas. Now they've dealing with an injury with Will Magnay, so it's been a really tough year, and it's obviously been documented in the press conferences on social media about some of the unsavory things that have been happening to their players. So, thoughts are with the Tassie Jack Jumpers players that have had to deal with that stuff, and I'm hoping the authorities and the NBL integrity unit take that into hand. So, really, really, really glad though that they got a win on the board under that sort of adversity.
Yeah. No, it was good to see. I think I love watching Crawford versus PJC though. There's something about that matchup that's just very entertaining. They're both the small guys on each other. I think it's just weird for both of them because they're both used to dealing with these bigger bodies where they can go under them. They have to be more, I guess, smart than just athletic or anything like that. They are very quick as well. Where in this one, it's kind of like a mirror matchup. They end up versing basically themselves on the other side of the court, and it's probably something they don't run into every day. And it just makes it very interesting. I think Crawford did a very good job on PJC in reality. But yeah, I think you summed it up really nicely there. So I think still an important week for people though, because most people probably held PJC. A lot of people probably brought in Lopez or held Lopez if you had him, who didn't quite get it done from what we saw the last few weeks. But I still think you would be very happy with what you're getting here. He has a low enough break even where he's making a ton of money anyway. So
absolutely. Look, I guess another disappointment on the round for me personally. I made a decision, even though I traded out PJC, to make some other moves, which those other moves have been totally fine. So that's worked out. I held Mooney, and the reason why I held Mooney is obviously the Breakers have 4 double game weeks from round 10 to round 13, and then they've got another 4 from 15 to 18. So I thought to myself, like, if I'm going to lose PJC, I still want to have one New Zealand piece that is going really well and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to Mooney's the piece I'm going to keep, and I'm just going to bench him. And he's had a couple shockers in a row. I think he had 6 turnovers in this game, so that's minus 12. And in one of their doubles last week, he had 5 turnovers as well. So it's just super coach killer. Like it's just his turnovers hadn't even been close to that through the year at all. And all of a sudden they've started appearing. So hopefully I can't trade him out. I kept him for a reason. I've got to keep him there for those stretches now. So I just need him to find his groove again and to stop turning over the ball.
Yeah, I mean, look, that is something you mentioned before. When someone's score heavy for their super coach points, when the ball don't go in, it gets dicey, to say the least. Saying that, there was a lot of weeks there where he had like high assists with high, scoring as well as good steals and stuff, and all of a sudden it all just disappeared. And
yep, look, that's the one thing. Like there was a bunch of people who had said to me, it's a mistake to keep Mooney because he only is scoring. And I said, guys, look, it's actually not correct. So his assists in his games this year had been 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 1. So that was Tassie. So he was averaging 5 assists a game, which like there wouldn't be. There's not a high number of players that are averaging 5 assists per game, like getting consistently those numbers at his price point. And then from a steals point of view, he had 2, 3, 3, 2, 0, 2. So like I actually looked at those figures and were like if you're averaging 5 assists and you're averaging 2 steals a game, like sometimes 3, like you're actually hitting all those rest of those metrics. It just helped that he was shooting lights out as well. Where all of a sudden this has all changed is his turnovers. Like I actually got it wrong. It wasn't 5. He's actually gone 6 turnovers into 6 turnovers. So that's terrible. That's minus 12, minus 24 in 2 games, where prior to that he'd gone 3 turnovers, 1 turnover, 1 turnover, 2. So the turnovers all of a sudden just came out of nowhere, and they're the hardest thing. Like even if you take 3 of those turnovers out of each game, his SuperCoach scores are okay to cop. It's just when you're doing 6, that's minus 12. It's so painful. Painful.
and that's as you said this week. In reality, it's like, okay, his assist numbers were down, his turnovers were through the roof. So all of a sudden, you had 12 points. He goes to 18. You had on what average he's getting 4 more assists than normal. Then he pushes to 26. There you go. That's where his points were. No assists and all those turnovers.
And all the turnovers, Like I could have copped no assists or low assists for a week. I'm totally fine. It's just turnovers are my biggest bugbearer in this format. Like it hurts so much. Like it's a beautiful thing about SuperCoach. I think it's a really great leveler because it's good to have a negative thing like that. It tests us all, but it's just I feel like I've copped. Being a Doolittle and Mooney owner, that means that in the last couple of weeks I've had a hell of a lot of negative points, which really does have an effect on your overall rankings. So,
yeah, of course. Well, let's bounce on down to Melbourne versus Perth. Now, this was also an entertaining game to watch. I mean, Goulding came out and just changed everything. I thought Perth had this game locked down, and Goulding went.
They did. They did.
He came out in the third, got 25 actual points. Just went bananas. Oh man. Look, so if anyone was holding Goulding, like, congrats on your massive score this week. I don't think there was very many at all. So huge pod there. One I actually want to point out was Amunza. He started in this game. I did not see that coming. He started with Doolittle, and Henshaw, Windler, and Pepper. So that was their starting five, and I didn't see that coming. They used him a lot as well. The ball went to him. He was hitting threes early. He was getting these little floaters to drop. It was just like, damn, this is really good basketball from him. Like, we
Yeah.
hadn't seen this from him yet. So this was
No.
super impressive and very rewarding for anyone that did actually trade him in. So congrats to y'all.
If Perth had won this game, because they started, they were they in front by about 16, I think, at one point.
Oh yeah, they were up by I feel like almost 20. They were up by a
Yeah,
lot.
like, so I was sitting there thinking to myself, it's going to be a blowout. And, I was worried about the Perth players getting benched because I was worried about a blowout. And then obviously we know what Goulding did. What effect do you think that has then on really and making a decision about Almansa? Because if you look at that first half and go, they looked unstoppable with Almansa starting and doing everything he was doing right, but then they go on to lose the game, like, how does he, from a coach perspective, like, how do you reflect on that? Do you go, oh, you know what, we lost because we had too many of the younger people on the court, right? I don't know, but I mean, he looks so good. Yeah, Amansa looks so good in that starting unit. Yeah, it's just hard to think, because part of me was like, I don't know Almansa. I really would prefer to go towards these Brisbane pieces, but I'm like, Almansa's B, he's probably going to be negative after that.
Yeah.
And with the DPP status, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to have DPP, 3 double game weeks and a negative break even, maybe that's not a bad idea. But I have this gut feel that because they lost, he'll revert back to the role he was playing. And as we know, like, he was probably only averaging 16 super coach points, maybe even
Oh, not
less than
even,
that.
not even. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's averaging like
less than that. So,
10 to 11.
yeah, so it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna bring up what he was averaging. He's averaging 12.6 and
Yeah, right. So it was
to a
less.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how the coach could turn around and not do what he did to start this game. Like, honestly, like, really, your team went bananas at the start with this starting rotation. This was not Almanza's fault that you lost this game in the slightest. You lost
Yeah.
it in the third term, and that's the term you need to reflect on. The other
Yeah.
terms, everything was going to script. Everything was
Yeah.
going so well. What went wrong in the third term? And then, like, even with, okay, Goulding got off the chain, how can we prevent this? Well, that's not Almanza's man. He's not
No.
manning up on Goulding.
No.
If screens are happening, there was definitely times that he did get switched on because of screens. He didn't quite respect Goulding enough. But that might just be a scouting thing to go back to Almanza with. Even in-game training, like, coaching sort of thing, that it's like, if ever Goulding is getting a screen, you are going over that and you are contesting. Like, you're going to give the man a layup rather than threes, because he was generally unbelievable.
I just couldn't stop it. Just couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly though, he was crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it's a beauty to watch when somebody's shooting like that. They're just anywhere was a catch and shoot, and it just found the bottom of the net, and you're like, damn.
Just a shame it had to be him, because I can't stand him. I can't stand him. But anyway, honestly, you have to marvel. Like, it was pretty incredible. Like, I think it was like 6 threes in a row or something. It was just incredible numbers. But again, Melbourne, they were down by a lot. Jack White gets pulled out of the game with a calf injury, and you think to yourselves, well, you're 18 down. You just lost, one of your best players. You're gone. Credit to them and credit to Goulding for getting him out, and that's why they're probably the premiership favourites, because they find a way to win these tough games.
Yeah, they always seem to find a way.
Yep.
Can't really say much more than that. But obviously, the other noticeable things, Doolittle, this was super frustrating with Doolittle. Once again, I also had him as captain. He was probably close to, once again, I wasn't looking at the live SuperCoach points, but he was definitely close to, I reckon, 20 at half time. And let alone his first quarter, like, he had 14 points, I feel, in the first quarter. He was dominating. He would have been, I swear, close to 30. And then the second half happens, and I don't know if it was just because he was overusing the ball, but every time he drove, it was a real 50-50. He was either scoring or he was turning it over. There was no middle ground. Like, there was no pass. There was no miss shot. It was either the ball's going in, or it's
going to the other team. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was cockiness from him or just Something like that, because like he took who is he, Bowen? He took Bowen to the rack a few times. He just outbodied him. It was actually, I think, White earlier in the game. He kept bodying out White, being too strong for White. He did the big flex on White when he like took him to the basket, and then Bowen came in. He got Bowen a few times quickly, but then after that, I think Bowen really tightened up,
Yep.
was being a lot stronger, wasn't letting him get his way, and then he just kept trying to force through him, and he kept just fumbling on the drives.
Yep.
Like it wasn't even straight up someone's hitting the ball out. It was just he kept like hitting his hip or something, and he just kept losing control of it, and it was very frustrating because there was a lot of offenses there where it's like Doolittle, you didn't have to just run into Bowen and try and force it to the rack.
Yeah.
There was
Could
plenty
have
of time
found
on the
someone else.
clock, yeah, to
Yep.
move the ball around,
Yep.
create something. And I do think that was actually, to a degree, kind of the reason they lost as well, because this game was close at the end and they needed to score on every offense. And he just turned it over, I reckon, probably 3 times in the final term when the game was on the line, because he
Yep.
wanted to be the guy that won them the game, and kind of ended up being the guy that debatably maybe lost them that game.
I really hope it doesn't end up being a case that's going to hurt his minutes. Because if I was really as a coach, I'd be pissed about those turnovers because they did those turnovers from him being one of the senior. They really, really, really hurt that team. Like they could have come back from that. They were in a position, and it was him that was turning over those possessions, which led to those points. So it wasn't on Doolittle, the Goulding stuff that was going on, but he had it in himself. He had enough ball to be able to do it. But those turnovers, it's just inexcusable. You can't turn over the ball that much in the final term when you're trying to win the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, good news for us. We're both Pinder owners. Pinder, who I thought was coming off the bench, and I was thinking, when this game started, I thought, shit, this is not good. I was a little bit panicked, but also like subtly thinking he's coming in against the second unit. That's a good thing, right? That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
well, that's how I was thinking. I was thinking to myself, this might actually be a good thing because he's coming against the second unit. So,
he was hungry for
so
rebounds, though.
yeah, no, he was. No,
Yeah,
he was.
definitely could have been a factor with Doolittle too, because he didn't really get rebounds this game. He
No,
really
he
got
didn't.
only points. Pinder got a ton of rebounds. Obviously, Amanza did. So I don't know if that Amanza affected Doolittle, but it has been a stat where it's like anytime Pinder does well, Doolittle does bad. Whenever Doolittle does well, Pinder does bad. And it might
Yep.
be one of these things that they're just eating each other's rebounds. And the second you take 5 rebounds from the other guy, you get a double-double, they don't, and it ends up 10 extra points to you rather than to them, and that's where the
Yep.
20-point swing sort of happens. So that's what I'm thinking, unfortunately, happened here for us Doolittle owners, or captainers, I should say. But yeah, I mean, rest of the guys, they were all right. Henschel had a few moments. Webster did a few. Webster honestly got like 4 assists in the first quarter, and I was like, come on, baby. You
Yep.
can do it.
Yep.
Didn't quite happen. But yeah, let's move on down to the Southeast Melbourne versus Cairns game. Speaking of blowouts, this was one of them again.
Yep.
If you're Cairns right now, oof, you're in hot water.
You're in hot water, but I tell you, congratulations to all the SuperCoach owners that own McCoy because he has made an absolute ton of cash, and he's just gone on and made more. He had a break even of negative 11, and he's gone out and scored 31. So congratulations to those people that.
So it does look like Supercoach actually just updated because it was a negative
Yeah.
20 break even, and he did just
Oh,
earn
negative 20, right.
52K, and now he
Yep.
still has a negative 11 for next week.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
So congratulations to all those people that that had him. It's incredible money earner that it's just worked out with the injuries. But yeah, Cairns are in a lot of trouble. They're going to need, obviously Armstrong came back, but they're going to need all their pieces back. Yeah, Armstrong, Edwards are just going to need everyone back because it's looking pretty dire with all the injuries that they've had, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The McCoy thing I actually find very frustrating. Everyone knew that McCoy is meant to be Armstrong's backup. We all knew that. And then he got suspended for the first 2 games, and we were like,
Yeah.
this is perfect. We're going to get him later in the season. He'll be a downgrade. It's everything we wanted as super coaches. And someone that I've been eyeing off from like the word good. Like I remember when we were doing the super coach video in like round 3 review or something, and I'm sitting there being like, just make sure you're prepared to get McCoy in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, he came out with a 0. He came out with a 5. He came out with a -2. And nobody touched him with a 4-foot pole because understandably so,
Obvious.
you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, but then out of nowhere, he just goes 19, 18, 27, 31, and now he's gone up 112K. And this is why we
Incredible.
wanted him. This is why we wanted him. We knew he was meant to be the second backup to Taron. We knew he actually had the talent for it. But besides the DUI, then also those very poor games. And yeah, as you said, congrats to anyone that actually did manage to get on this man.
Yeah. No, he's been massive. It's he's obviously been some sort of good news for Cairns. They haven't had a lot of good news. It hasn't been their fault. It's honestly, you got to remember, Cairns had a couple of really, really good games. When they had everyone on deck, they had a couple of really, really impressive wins. You're like, okay, everything's here. And then when Taron got injured, it just fell apart. As
Yeah.
soon as Taron got injured, everything just fell apart. It was just like, and you could tell, like, it was part of the reason that they were like all things saying, this is Taron's team, this is Taron's team. As soon as Taron was out, you could see it was his team because they just went to water. Like they literally couldn't do it. And then they obviously got those other injuries. So yeah, it's been a rough year.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing with that, as you said, it's like he didn't play round 1, they lost. Didn't play round 2, they lost. Played round 3 double games, they won both the double games, and then hasn't
And
played
impressively.
since. Yeah, and they hadn't won a game since. So the 2
Yep.
games he played, they won both of them, and then they hadn't won
Yep.
without him.
Yep.
Warningberg, though, he's actually been quite good as well. He was quite good
Yeah.
in this early on, scored some serious points, but then kind of disappeared later in the game. But yeah, I mean, Sam just ran over them. They just ran over him by that point. Sobe, I don't know what his assist numbers were, but he was also so close to a double again. I'm sitting there counting them. I'm pretty sure he got 9. It might
I
have been
think he
8.
got 9. I
Yeah,
think he got
I think
9
it was
from
9.
memory.
Yeah, I think he was on 9 too. As I said, I was
Yep.
counting them. I wasn't looking at any stat sheets. But personally, when he got subbed off with 5 minutes left because it's a blowout game, I was sitting there like, no, please don't tell me this is 9. Like, I'd prefer it to be 8 than 9
Yeah.
just because of how tilting that is. Like, come on.
I didn't see the
um,
final number, but I definitely saw 9 with about 6 minutes to go. So,
yeah, no, he didn't get
and
one at the end. He got subbed off. So,
yeah, no, that's brutal. But I tell you what a Sobe. So a mate of mine who always watches this show, Daryl. Like I mentioned him in my winners article because he honestly doesn't watch basketball at all, but he learned how to play the game so he could help me on the journey last year. And obviously, we talk a lot about Supercoach. He brought in Sobe at the start of SEM's thing. He was just like, look, I haven't got enough money to get to these pieces, these pieces, these pieces. He said, I've got to bring this Sobe bloke. But he said, you've always said how much you dislike him. I was like, yeah, I do dislike him. I said, I do dislike him. I said, I hated him with the bullets. And I said, I can't stand him. And I said, look, I said he does have the ceiling, right? He does have the ceiling. I said, and maybe with this, Derek Walton Jr. out, maybe he does, really well. And what an incredible stretch it's been for Sobe and people who brought him in. He's scored really, really well. And obviously SEM have won the majority of the games with him doing that. So fingers crossed for Sobe. I really hope that the form that he's been displaying, to the majority of it in the last 4 to 5 games, I hope that for SEM's sake, that he can keep this roll on, and that he can sort of rewrite a few of the history books of some of the poor seasons he had in Brisbane.
yeah, look, I'm a Sobe owner. I brought him in at the start of that run. And just so you are aware, he was 256K at the start of that run. He's
Yep.
now 330. He has gone up massively,
Yep.
37K alone this week. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I've made a lot of bad decisions this season, unfortunately. I mean, right under Sobe is Glover, and I don't want to talk about the 43K he just made.
Yep.
But Sobe was one of the ones I did right.
Yeah, no, it's no, well done to the Sobe owners. It's not like I don't think there was a whole heap of people that had him, so it's a really good outcome for people who've got him, and he's done his job now, and I'm assuming I'm assuming you must be thinking about moving him on, considering SEM don't have a double now to around 12, or you're
Yeah.
going to hold him?
I think this is where a bit of a debate can come in. I was thinking we could maybe talk about this on some maybe hold or sell guys. And I actually think for a lot of people, Sylvie's a hold.
Right.
That might sound weird. Personally, I'm going to be selling him. But the reason I'm saying this is obviously White's now injured. So most people are White owners. So they're going to have to move White, meaning they only have one other trade they can make. And Matt Hurt's break even is in the toilet. It's 47. Sobe has a 26 break even. If you're playing the break even game alone, you're probably moving Hurt over Asobi. You're going to move Adela Vadova over Asobi. If you hold Doyle, you're going to move him over Asobi. So I think Sobe in most situations could actually be deemed a hold, unless you're in a situation with, like me, where I don't have any Melbourne, any Tasmania, and the only two sim players I have are Hurt and Sobe. So I'm obviously just going to move those two guys.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I think for most people, he would actually be a hold, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I just think purely because they've only got one double game week now in the next, 7 rounds. If you, for instance, let's say you were a Doyle and Sobe owner, it would make more sense. Well, actually, you know what? They've both hardly got any. They've both hardly actually got any doubles up. So you're probably going to move them both. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like Milton Doyle's break evens come up as only 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
I'd
thought
say it's because of
would
the
have cooked
40.
him.
Yeah, but you got to remember, because of that 13, it will cook him the following week.
Yeah.
It will cook him the following week.
It is Brisbane at home, though, so I would pull Brisbane at home or Sobe. Who does he have again? Sobe will have Perth in Perth. So you probably do hold Doyle, maybe a bit more of a matchup dependent thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, each their own there.
Yeah. So I've got a bit of a decision to make, because I've got Jack White, Cam Oliver, and Milton Doyle, right? So I was going to keep Jack White. And then I'm like, okay, well, Jack White's injured. I've got to trade him out. But now it's okay, Cam Oliver, that is so frustrating what's happened. But they've got a double game week in round 10. Do I just hold and ride out the storm because that his DPP, which is obviously a huge advantage any time, he's got a double game week well and truly before Doyle? Or do I just, as we've discussed about the Sydney rotation, do I just cut my losses and say, you know what, I can't do this headspace wise anymore. I got to get rid of him and just hold Milton for one more week, because his BE is only 20. It's not given that he'll hit that, obviously, but it is only a 20, which means he shouldn't lose. Even if he has a bad game, he shouldn't lose too much, and then potentially move Milton Doyle up to, I'm hoping I'll have enough money to put him up to PJC for the round 10.
Yeah, yep. No, I mean, yeah, that is a very hard one for you. I do think, as you mentioned, Doyle probably makes the most sense purely off the break-even point of view. Speaking of break-evens, I decided to come have a look at them, and the lowest break-even of this week will be Angus Glover. That's very painful. Minus 12. He just made 43K as well. If we hold him this one extra week, you probably hold him again, and you probably end up extra 70K over these 2 weeks.
So brutal. So brutal. Far out. Anyway, well done again to everyone else. Everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess we could probably try and wrap up, our last few things. I mean, obviously the last game here, Adelaide versus Illawarra, it's pretty irrelevant in most senses. Obviously, KD and Harold continue to be absolute menaces across the board. Harold is now over 450K. So when Adelaide get into
453,000. Yeah. Holy crap!
When they get into
how are we going to afford that?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. As much as we talk about not meeting money for the Brisbane guys, Adelaide do come into what, 3 doubles at the end or 4, and you're probably going to want KD and Harold, and they're both going to be probably 400k plus.
The thing
But
about
yes,
Harold is he's so enjoyable to watch.
oh
Harold's
yeah,
an awesome super coach thing to have because I want to watch the Adelaide games
yeah,
because of I do like I want to watch the Adelaide games because of him. Like he's brought something. I hope that what he's done for some of these older NBA players go, you know what? Look what I can do in this place called Australia. You know, it's not that bad a place to live for a short period of time. We're all going to come down like that. What he's done for the Adelaide franchise and for the NBL has been incredible. Like I really, really hope that this is the start of something. It's been pretty special, hasn't it?
oh definitely. And I think as you mentioned, the entertainment factor, it's insane. I do remember
Yeah.
when I traded him out the following week. I was watching their games, rooting for him, and then I remembered I don't even own him anymore because he just was like, oh no, wait, actually stop. Oh, you're out of control.
Stop, stop.
Oh, but I think the surprising thing in this one would be Darius Days. This man has fallen off a cliff.
Cliff. Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
so good to open this season. He made us insane money. He got us to like almost 250k. He's now below 250k. He's
That's amazing, isn't it?
242k. Yeah, with a 31 break even. I mean, look, once Illawarra hit their good run, it does become a bit hard. Do you bring him in because we know how good he can be, or do you not bring him in because, well, form wise, he's just dried up?
Yeah. Look, I saw him at the preseason competition on the Gold Coast. Look, I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like he was incredible. And you got to remember, he had just flown into the country when I saw him. So he hadn't even been in the country 3 days, and then he did what he did. I think you've got to back him that he's going to come good. Like I don't think all of a sudden you just forget, how you play the game. I think Tatum's probably, like Tatum himself as a coach has had a pretty rough trot in recent weeks. Obviously, the spotlight was on him for some of the things that he said about the referees in a press
Yeah.
conference. Obviously, he had a fair old crack at Goulding in the press conference as well, but that's okay. I like him more after he said that. So I don't know. Maybe there's just a few things in the background for the Illawarra team that they got to sort out. But I think you got to back the fact that like he needs to be better for them. So I think that it'll happen. Hopefully, it'll happen sort of just in time for that stretch of games that they're going to have.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So look, we will maybe try and look at our trades heading into this week. I don't know if you've kind of figured yours out yet. I think me personally, I already sort of mentioned it, Hurt and Sobe out for like a Bannon Cook sort of thing. At least, look, that makes the most sense. I unfortunately do have Tyler Robinson sort of sitting on the bench, just fermenting now. He's just kind of losing cash, and I kind of want to get rid of him. But I mean, what is his price? He's 100k. Technically, if he lost 30k, it sucks, but it's really not that much money in the grand scheme of things. And I sort of just had to move him, I think, last week. It's too late to move him now. I'm not going to use a boost to move him. And what if I move him instead of a Sobe or a Hurt? Then I don't even know what I can get with that personally, but probably nothing good, I'm going to say. What about you? Do you have any plans for your trades?
The plan is 2 Brisbane pieces because obviously they're one of only 2 teams on a double. I've already got 4 Perth pieces in my team with Doolittle, Henschel, Pinder, and Pepper. So the plan is to bring 2 Brisbane pieces in, obviously for their double, and then I'll hold those pieces then for their doubles in between rounds 11 and round 18. I've then got other pieces sort of ready for the round 10 double in the sense that, I've got Mooney at the very least, who I'm going to be holding. So I've got a New Zealand piece there ready to go. The plan was obviously to have Oliver. That plan is probably in the process of changing, but the plan will definitely be 2 Brisbane pieces. I would say that Tyrell Harrison, in fact, I won't even say it, Tyrell Harrison will be one of the people I'll be bringing in this week. Then it's just a case of look, if I'm trading out Oliver, I can either trade out Oliver and move Henschel back up to the forward and bring Brisbane Peace down there, whether that piece is Keontae Cook or a Prather, a Bateman or a Bateman, or I could just trade Oliver out and go to Bannon in that forward thing. But Prather, just at the price point, Prather is cheap and opens up more money and makes the whole move to PJC easier for me next week, the following week. So that is where I find that quite attractive. But Keontae Cook.
I do just want to point out Harrison does have a 72 break even coming into his double. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
I am aware of that, but like he's someone that from a pure scoring point of view, like I think he is going to like I think I know he's had 13 and 18, but he's also had 7 games where he's broken 28 points. So he's been really fairly consistent during that thing. He's clearly going to be someone that we are going to want for this stretch. I do understand what you're saying, like purely on that break even. So we look at his break even, you said it was 72. I didn't actually realize it was going to be that much. And if you then compare that to other Brisbane players' break evens, where Keontae Cook's only 35.
Yep. Bannon's 48.
Prather's 29.
Yep.
Bateman, would you say 52? What was Bannon's?
48.
48. So you know what? Maybe that is a different mindset. Maybe that is a shift in mindset that you don't necessarily purely because of Harrison's break even. You don't have to get Harrison this week. I was pretty set on the fact that I was going to do that, but money is such an important thing, and the thing that I have to constantly be conscious of is that because I'm a player that sold PJC, I need to make sure that I've got enough money to be able to flip Milton Doyle to PJC next week. Now, I've got about 66 in my bank, but obviously that's still a fair way short. So, if I'm moving Jack White to some of these other cheaper pieces, maybe it means I don't have to bring in Harrison this week because I've still got the benefit of having Pinder on court this week. So, and obviously I'm not going to sell. I'm not going to sell Rob Lowe after he decided to break. Oh, Rob Lowe, yes, break even a negative 11. Yes, go old man. Well done, old man Lowe.
He was super impressive.
Yeah. So,
look, I guess
long and short of it, plan will be 2 Brisbane pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to say, I don't know if Magnay is back, but he does have Tasmania. So if they don't have Magnay back, I guess the question is that better or worse for Harrison? Because traditionally, I think against actual traditional centers, he's been very good. I think he struggled when they played small ball. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. They have. He has. When he's up against like 2-headed monsters, he goes good. Like he really does. So, but that break even, that's something definitely to look at because those other players, those break evens, he can break it. There's no doubt about that. Like it only takes him scoring 235s, which he's done a couple of times this year, so he definitely can do it. But at the same time, if we're looking at trying to bring in Brisbane pieces and we're trying to get them at the optimum price, and you've got a couple of those pieces that have got break evens of under 40 for, one of them a break even of 29 across 2 games, then maybe they're the type of pieces that we need to look at first.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm even considering do I go Prather over Bannon just purely off the break-even game. Something I'll figure out. But look, let's wrap it up by jumping to our captains. So obviously it's going to be either a Brisbane or a Perth player. I'll start with you. Who are you feeling captaincy this week?
The problem is you're really limited. you're really limited. Like from Perth pieces, Doolittle probably is the one that more regularly gets closer to that double type thing. The problem is Doolittle's turnovers are really hurting his captaincy numbers. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I can trust Pinder.
Oh no.
I can't trust Pinder's game time, and I just can't trust like some of the things that Pinder has done Supercoach scoring wise this year. So like, but on the same time, I don't think there's anyone else in the Perth lineup unless it's a Bryce Cotton, and we know that it's not playing that you could trust. Like I don't think that Henschel, because really benches Henschel as soon as he makes mistakes. So he doesn't like Henschel's not really a captain option, I don't think. And I don't think that we could, with confidence, captain Elijah Pepper, is still a pretty young fella. So I think Perth, if you're captaining a Perth piece, it really has to be able to do little and Pinder. On the Brisbane side, like if you've got
Yes.
That's the other thing about if you're going to trade in Harrison, that's a legitimate captain option. I just wanted to go back to Keandre Cook's scores for the year or
They're
any
actually
of these
pretty
Brisbane.
decent, Keandre Cooks. He didn't perform well against Tasmania last year, but he's gone 38, 25, 23, 27, 20, 15, 34, 41. So, you know, only one game below 20 if you count the 20 he got. Unfortunately, mid 20s aren't great,
No.
but if someone gets 50 this week, I think you'd be like, I would be happy enough with that because there's a good chance that if you captain someone this week, I mean, Brisbane and Perth, we've seen it, they've been so volatile, they're scoring. Everyone,
Yep.
even Doolittle last time he played Sim, he got only 16 super coach. There's a
Yep.
chance that you could captain somebody that gets in the 30s this week, unfortunately. So I think if you got a guy that ended up going 50 plus, you'd be happy enough. I do think Harrison would be my numero uno captain choice. I feel most confident about him getting at least one probably 30 plus game, if not two. So you're thinking at minimum he's probably getting you 50, but he also has the upside that he could probably push close to 80. Where the rest of these guys, I don't know if I got the confidence to say that.
No. Well, I'm just talking like if we're talking purely minutes on court, like Cook's minutes on court have been really good. Like he's played 30 minutes a game every game except the Sydney Kings game, which was the game that they were losing by like 38
Yeah.
points. I'm just going to go to Josh Bannon's minutes.
They'll probably be competitive with Tasmania, I think. So
Yep,
probably
33,
not a blowout game.
31, 28, 31. Yeah, so apart from Bannon's first game, which was again the Sydney game where they got belted, like he's played 30 minutes in 4 of his 6 games. So, I mean, whenever you're picking a captain, you're also trying to pick people that, are playing good minutes. So, yeah, which is why I think Doolittle, if you take away those turnovers, which is why if you're looking at Doolittle, like Doolittle's playing ridiculous minutes for Perth. Like I
Yeah.
think he's averaging like over 35 minutes a game. So that's why he becomes a really attractive captain option because court time equals opportunity. So that's why like he probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, you take those six
Um,
turnovers out, what he gets 35 in this game. And as you
yeah,
said, it's all about it. As long as he keeps those turnovers low, he's good enough. He's getting enough court time that he should be getting, you'd think, 30 plus a game.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think probably the top pick has to be Doolittle. But Brisbane do have easier matchups. Like they are Tassie, Tassie at the moment are an easier matchup, and Perth really have been in general have been an easier matchup. I know Perth have shown up on a couple games, but they have been an easier matchup in general this year. So yeah, tough week, isn't it? Tough week.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say Harrison 1, Doolittle 2. And then really, there's so many people that could fit into that third category. If you want to roll
Yeah,
the dice on a pod play, because I reckon those two will be the most captain players, feel free to roll the dice with a Cook or a Bannon or a Pinder. They're also, I think Cook and Pinder have the ceilings, but
yeah,
they also have the floors.
yeah.
Where Bannon, I don't think has the ceiling, unfortunately, but I think his
No,
floor is also much higher than those two. So Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I think that'll be us done. We've run for an hour 20, so a bit longer than I thought we were going to run for. But look,
Sorry,
first of
everyone.
all, look, we would like to thank everyone for tuning into the video, for liking and subscribing for the consistent injections of SuperCoach content directly into their YouTube feed. But Dave, any last words? Where can the viewers find you?
Yeah, guys. Just on X, guys. Look, I'm going to be honest, guys. I probably haven't been in the last 4 to 5 weeks. I probably haven't been as active on X in the NBL Supercoach space. That's purely just because parenthood, with 5 kids, and also the fact that I work in the wagering world. So this past couple of weeks has been Spring Carnival and Melbourne Cup. So it's been a very, very hectic period of work. We're only had 1 day off in about 13 days. So it's been really hectic. But now that Melbourne Cup's over, I'm hopefully going to be back in. But you can find me on X at my name is DVG. And obviously, you can also find me in the Discord of the SC Hub.
Yeah, and make sure you do tune into that Discord for the SuperCoach Hub. Join into our consensus team. Put your votes in. That team's doing all right. It's doing better than me. So jump in and put your votes in because you guys have a much better consensus than what my line of thinking usually is. But you can find me either on YouTube at Verns SuperCoach or on X at Verns_SC Hub. But till next time, guys, we appreciate y'all. Peace. Later.
Bye, guys.